So when we focus on these things that are our Achilles heel, right? As a country, like race is definitely our Achilles heel. It's something that
Mm-hmm.
it's still very raw for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can get. It's a lot harder to arrive at that place of oneness or that place of love or that place of. Have you ever done those? Do you meditate?
No.
No. So there's a lot of meditations that Joe Dispenza does, and he's like a world renowned leader when it comes to like self healing, and
Mm-hmm.
he does like seminars all over the world. And some of the meditations he does, my husband does all the time. They're like 2 hours long, and it's trying to become no one. So it's like, who are you when you become no one? When you detach yourself from this meat sack of a body, right? That's you're going to exist further then. Like once this thing is dead and gone, you don't cease to exist. There's a soul or a spirit or an energy
Or
that
spark.
lives
Yeah.
on, right? So what is that? That's the
Mm-hmm.
important thing. That's the intelligent thing. That's the sense of I think a lot of times we get, I guess, confused that this is I, right? Like this body is I, but you were
Yeah.
something before and you're going to be something after.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think when we focus on our differences, it's so much harder to again get to love, which is the more positive place. And that's what we all want. Those people that are so angry and screaming and borderline violent, they need love more than anybody. And that was
Mm.
something I think that you're really good at is when you were narrating some of your videos on the evergreen stuff, you were talking about this one professor who she was very angry. She did a lot of shouting. I can't remember her name. And you were explaining why her mental state was where it was at. And you did a really good job at explaining her reality and where she was coming from. And I think a lot of people don't do that. So I really appreciated that insight. Um,
I
and
know
I
who you're
think,
talking about.
yeah, what was her
That
name?
poor woman. She left Evergreen. She got a settlement, 250,000, and then she goes to
Wow.
this art community or whatever in Tulsa, and ends up suing them for the same thing she for. She's just carrying around her trauma, and
So where is that? Who's the common denominator there, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
uh I had this speaking of, I had this we're looking for a new nanny right now, and I had this
Hmm.
application the other day, and she was like, "Okay, so I think it's important that I let you know that I have a service dog," which is fine. You know, I don't have an issue with that. The service dog is for a lot of childhood trauma that I've had, so very specific. And she
Hmm.
says, "I've had a lot of experience with negative situations, and I'm really good in them. Specifically hospitalizations, traumas, abuse, and names all these things." And I was like, whoo, I do not want that energy in my house or around my family.
Hmm.
Sounds like you've had a rough go. I didn't, and
Yeah,
obviously not interviewing this person,
yeah,
but
yeah. Hmm.
there's a lot of people like that where
Yeah,
that's their normal
yeah.
and they don't, I guess, I guess maybe you can't when you're in that state, but you don't take a breath, step back and say, what's the common factor that keeps here? Is it me,
Yeah,
or is
yeah,
this experience unique? If this experience is unique, maybe there's, something else
yeah.
happening. But if it's a pattern, then maybe there's something I have to look inside of myself to try to break that pattern.
There is an aspect of activist culture that attracts traumatized individuals and then concentrates that trauma and then acts as a justification for maladaptive behaviors related to that trauma. Basically, a whole bunch of acting out to solve the world, uh, but not really understanding that you're trying to solve something in here, right? It's
Mm.
very clean your room. It's very clean your room,
I
right?
know, I love that rule. Make your bed.
Yeah,
Uh,
I never
yeah,
do that, but
I'm really bad at that too. Every time, like Jordan Peterson would be really mad at me right now. Um, Trying to change the world podcast, but my bed's not made.
yeah,
Um, I was definitely one of those people though. I got sucked into one of those women's gender studies classes when I was a senior. I just like I needed that, random
yeah.
class to get a
What
credit or
what
what.
what caught you or captured you about that?
I thought it was gonna. So I was a psych major, so I thought it was just an extension of a psychology class. I didn't really know anything about it, and I heard that it was a fun class. That's what I
Hmm.
heard from like other people, and I was like, I don't know, I need an extracurricular, and I'll just throw it in, and maybe I'll learn something about women and sexuality. And they show you day one was this awful video of like this the story of this trans person getting murdered, and that's where they opened, and I'm like crying, and I'm like, the world is this evil place. Me and I
Hmm.
was in South Carolina, so they're talking about how awful the South is, which is weird at a Southern school. um and you get so emotionally invested in these
Mm-hmm.
stories because they're just these individual stories. It's not to take away from the violence or those wrongdoings, because obviously no one's condoning that, but
Mm-hmm.
they make it seem a lot more prevalent, I think, than it is. So what's actually ironic, or I guess what started, um, I guess, for me to see things differently, because I went from thinking everything was bad and evil and not accepting. So I actually started a, like, I can't remember the name of it. I think it was called like it was like a pride group or something. Like there was no spaces for like the gay community on campus at all. Like it got kind of shut down and whatever. I was like, okay, I'll do this. Like I'll create this space and then give it to someone who's actually a member of this group, because I don't belong as the president because I'm straight. So I create this group, hand it over to somebody else, and we had like like tables out on the lawn, and people were signing up and creating like meetings, and there was food and drinks, and like everyone was so nice. Like everyone was so nice. There was not a single negative interaction that I had at
Hmm.
all. And I was like, okay, well maybe this place isn't as bad as that teacher said, because no one was like, move your booth or get out of here, slur a word or not. Everyone was like, this is a party. We had music and it was wonderful. And I'm pretty sure that club is still open. So that's awesome. But
Hmm.
um, yeah,
Hmm.
it just kind of showed me like the world's not as bad as
Yeah.
those classes tell you that it is.